Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. It's us back again, the What's Your Weird Story podcast. Me, Adam Beebe, your host, with your other host, as always, my compadre, the Rudolph to my Santa sleigh. I don't know. The Frosty to my snowman. No, the magic cap to my Frosty. The holiday metaphor, insert here. Barry Johnston. Hello, Barry.
Oh, it's a beautiful time of the year. I woke up this morning. There's about 3 inches of snow on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah. Which here is kind of rare. We don't get a whole lot of snow, so it's
mainly ice.
Yeah, mainly ice. So it's nice, man. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee and enjoying the snow a little bit. Gonna make a stew a little bit later today and kind of enjoy the weather, as it were. How are things with you, man?
Pretty good, dude. I'm just plugging away and getting all my holiday ducks in a row, sending out presents, and cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Not traveling this year because of COVID. I just don't want to, take the chance of bringing, a foreign disease or bug from where I'm at down to where my mom and my stepdad and my sister and her boys live. That's in North Carolina, where I usually spend my holidays. But so we're just going to do, I guess we're going to do Christmas over Skype this year. But but I do get to spend Christmas with my cats, my girls this year. They're looking forward to that.
Good. Good, man.
So I'm just kind of getting all that stuff.
Sure.
In a row,
I think a lot of people are probably going to do that this year, as far as stay at home, kind of like Thanksgiving, kind of keep distance. It's smart. Yeah. I mean, we're kind of in that time frame where we're still trying to. The vaccine hasn't officially been released, although they're trying to get it out there, and
they're working on it. It could be out by the time by the Tuesday this comes out. So
right, but I mean, I was going to say about the when you mail your presents, like I've bought a few things that I'm noticing, the delivery services are backed up, man, like crazy. And it's frustrating. I get it, and hopefully at some point they can figure it out with, I think all the COVID stuff, and this because this is part of what you do, but it just has magnified everyone's ability to purchase things on the internet and have them delivered. So it's burdened these companies to get things delivered on time. And if you've ever worked in a facility that delivers packages like UPS or FedEx, it's a nightmare. I don't know how they keep it straight.
Man, it's logistics. It's just trying to find the most efficient way to do it. And they change things so rapidly,
right?
At least where I'm delivering with. So, and sometimes it's not for the better, and sometimes it is. But
right.
But I mean, and of course this happens every year around this time.
Right.
With any kind of parcel package delivery system, whether it's like UPS or USPS or whatever.
Right. So, right. Yeah.
But hey, that's what it is. But dude, I forgot to tell you this story.
Okay.
And it's related to that, and it's kind of a funny story. And so, like, I was out delivering. I'm surprised I haven't told you the story, and I don't think I held back, and then I forgot.
Right.
But I was out delivering, and it was it was nighttime because it gets night at like 4:30 or whatever, and so. I was out kind of in the country area, and I was coming around this. I had to turn off one road into another. It was kind of more of an angled. It wasn't like a 90-degree angle, but it was more like 45. So I had to go around kind of. And I'm slowing down. I'm going around this angle, and I see this thing.
Okay.
On the side of the road, and I thought I saw a ghost.
Really?
It was all in brown, and it looked like this old man, and it was standing like on the side of the road. And I was like, "Oh God, oh Jesus," or something. I yelled out as I was turning around, and then I saw him like react to me.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, all right." Probably not a ghost, but that was immediately my first thought. Like, man, I've been doing this for a long time. That's my first thought. So yeah. So then, like, I went and dropped off the package, and I was coming back around. I was like, all right, if I see him again,
yeah, he's real.
He's real. If I don't, then I saw an old man ghost all in brown, because that was the thing. He was all in brown, not like UPS brown, but he's just brown coat and brown pants and like a brown shirt or whatever.
Okay.
And so like I was looking for him. Coming because I was coming up on the curve because it's this weird angle curve to get back on the road and everything, and it's like this is an off road, so it's like trees on all of it, so it's a creepy road. Probably beautiful at other times of the year, but now it's the fall, it's night, and it's cold, it's creepy.
Right.
And so I'm like kind of going slow, and I'm trying to look for him, on the right side of the road. But then all of a sudden, boom, he pops up on the left side of the road, and I'm like, and then I see him from the back, the back of his head, and he turns around, and he's like looking at me, and he's got like a little flashlight on his head, which he wasn't wearing before.
Really?
Yeah. So I noticed that the flashlight on his head. Then I knew, I was like, okay, that's not a ghost. That's an old man who's dangerously walking these country roads
at night.
Who decided at night, who's decided maybe I should put this flashlight on my head. Oh
man. That is, I have had that happen before, where like it just happened the other night, where I'm driving down the road. We have a crossing around here that is off of it's a bike trail, and it runs through like basically the majority of the town. But there's these crossings that come across like the main roads. And the other night I'm driving, and I can't see because the guy who's crossing is in dark clothes. So warning to you guys that are out there running or jogging or walking at night, wear bright clothes. Wear something reflective.
Yeah, yes. You should know this by now. If you're an adult,
100%.
You should know this by now.
Because I did not see this guy. He put the flashers on. You can put the flashers on the crosswalk to let people know that you're coming across. And thank God he sat there and waited, because I saw out of the corner of my eye his leg as it was like coming in motion. And I slammed my brakes on, thinking that he's coming across, which I don't think he was. But still, he didn't have reflective clothes on. It scared the hell out of me, man. Yeah, so, yeah. Crazy, man. I didn't know that. Well, that's wild. And of course, anybody out there that's driving at night, just be cautious of that kind of stuff,
Definitely so. All right. Well, hey, so we got kind of a special this week. We got a special twofer. We got this regular episode for you guys, and we've got a bonus episode all on its own. So, with our first episode here that you're listening to now, proper, we have got it's kind of a special episode on its own. We've got some write-ins, and we've got a interview with our friend of the show and past guest Brandon Robbins, and he is going to be discussing his novel. He's written a novel, and it's his first novel, and it's being published, and it will be out on December 20th. You can order it. You'll be able to order it off of Amazon. It'll be, you can get a Kindle version. You can get a printed version. It sounds like it's a really cool story, and if you're into, the horror genre, well, you'll have to listen, and maybe if you're piqued, pick a copy up of some sort. So.
Absolutely.
But first, we've got our write-ins, and we've got one that's a short little update from our friend Ori, And then we've got Rudy, who has a really cool story about his grandparents and parent and dad. So let's kick it off and welcome our special correspondent, our resident Bigfoot expert, and the voice of the listener, Mr. Jeff Hubbard, to read these stories, because that's what he do. Jeff, thank you for being both Ori and Rudy today. What's your weird story? All right, so what we've got here is an update from Ori, if you remember from the episode, Psst, 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 which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
She wrote us a little bit of an update here, and we are, of course, our reader Jeff is gonna read it. So have at it, sir.
All right, here we go, guys. And like Adam said, this is from Ori. So, okay, story time. The other morning, my son got into bed with me in the middle of the night. He often does this, and before the sun came up, he went to go play in his room, but he couldn't open the door, which is super weird because he opens his door all the time. There's no lock on it or anything. He had to open it to get in bed with me in the first place. He's turning the handle and trying to push it open, and he goes, "Mommy, what's that sound?" And I groggily respond, "It's the door handle, baby." But he goes, "No, hey, who is that talking in my room right now?" Then, the other night, I go to clean out a cabinet in his room that I haven't touched since I moved in, so he can have more space. And I found both of my grandparents' ashes. This whole time, my poor son has been sleeping with them 2 feet from his head.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you remember she had some odd things that were happening in her house when she came on. She was talking about things that were happening, and man, and then nothing happened for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
So almost a year.
Yeah.
Shortly after she talked to us originally, she built a kind of like a shrine or a kind of a Day of the Dead kind of, mantle,
right,
for to honor her family and everything. So she put one of those up, and after that, everything had really cooled off for a long time. She didn't notice anything for like almost a year, and then this thing happened, and so. But she said she took both of the ashes and put them over there on the shrine. Okay. So and since then everything's been cool.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Dang, man. That's freaky.
Yeah, because all along she's felt that it's been her grandparents and her great grandmother that were the spirits that were there.
Right. Right. So, wow. Well,
if there may have been more, but yeah.
Yeah. Wish her the best. Hope that all turns out all right.
Yeah. At least they should be friendly spirits.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She always felt like they were always, friendly spirits. They weren't anything terrifying. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's go ahead and let's cruise on to the number 2.
Okay. Did you send that to?
I sent it to
that.
Yeah.
Let me try. Okay. Looks like I got it here. Yeah. This is probably better.
Okay.
Than the other one. It's not super long. This is from Rudy.
Hold on a
Payan?
second. I think it's Payne, but I don't know. Just say Rudy.
Okay. Or it does say RUDV.
It's Rudy.
It's Rudy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll let you go ahead and do your thing, and then I'll do my thing.
This is from Rude.
I think that was a typo.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Rudy.
Yeah.
So Rudy from Texas, who sent this to us via our Facebook page. Mr. Hubbard.
Oh, okay. We're ready. Okay. This is another one. We've got another write-in, and this is from Rudy from Texas. This is a genuine, true story told for the very first time. On August 6th, that's actually my birthday. This is me talking right now, not Rudy.
Yeah.
August 6th is my birthday.
Nice.
So, on August 6th, 1980, my grandparents were traveling from Odessa, Texas to Mexico due to a family emergency. They took off at around 11 p.m. on the night of the 5th with their two kids, which is my dad and my aunt. My grandpa, along with my grandma's uncle and brother, were riding in the front seat with my grandma, and the kids were in the back. Between 2:30 and 3 o'clock a.m., south of Marfa, Texas, is when they see something strange by the Chinati Peak Mountains. They see what seemed to be a big fire on the ground against a mountain. My grandma asked if it could be illegals trying to stay warm. Her uncle said, "I don't think so. It would catch the attention of law enforcement and eventually get them caught." My grandparents then say that the fire started forming and rising up to the top of the mountain. My grandma screamed, "Look!" That's when they all realized what it was. Fear started to spread throughout the car as what they described to be a tremendously fast spinning disc, shaped as if a frisbee was laid on its face with another one on top of it, also disc-shaped. Red and yellow fire-colored smoke was raging out of the bottom and from the top. They could feel the force from the disc. It then started to follow them from a distance along the mountains. It would abruptly stop when they stopped and accelerate when they did. At one time, the disc crossed over into the street in front of them. My aunt says it looked big enough to fit a car into it. That's when they all got really scared, and the kids started to cry along with my grandma as she began to pray out loud. They had heard about abductions happening at the time, so they were aware of what could possibly happen. My grandpa, on the other hand, is the bravest man I know and wanted to catch their attention. He pulled off to the side of the road and got out of the vehicle with a flashlight. He then tempted and called out for the disc to get closer while pointing the flashlight towards them, saying, "Come on, come on." My grandma got out of the car and took the flashlight and told him to get his ass back in the car and to haul ass. The disc then crossed back over towards the mountains. My grandpa said it moved like a rabbit jumping over weeds. They could see little windows and lights inside, but nobody or nothing controlling it. It made no sound, and they couldn't really see a color due to it being dark. Once my grandparents got back on the road, the disc was still following them at a distance. It would go up and down the sides of the mountains. Finally, it went behind one mountain and never came back out the other side. Approaching the ghost town of Shafter, Texas, is when the disc disappeared. My grandma, still in shock, asked her uncle if it could be witches, but he replied, "You'd need a whole regiment of witches to make something like that." See, my grandma had to deal with a jealous witch back in Mexico when her and my grandpa first married,
Wow.
but I'll save that for another story.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Rudy, we're definitely going to have to hear that.
Yeah, that does sound good.
Wow.
They said only one truck passed them throughout the whole incident. It never stopped or slowed down. It just carried on. They weren't sure if the truck had seen it as well. I sent you the interview I did with my grandparents so you could hear it straight from them. They had heard about the Marfa lights, but in no comparison It was similar to what they had seen. Unfortunately, they have no proof. They did not have a camera at that certain time. My grandpa worked at a plant for the 43 years here, and he lived in Odessa and finally retired. He tells me that his coworkers would say he was lucky to have been able to see that. His coworkers would even try to go to the same spot at around the same time to try and catch it, but no one ever saw it again. My grandpa talks about an elderly man who worked at the plant who told him during World War II there was a base stationed in Marfa. The soldiers on the ground would see the lights and would think it was the Germans coming to attack.
Wow.
The ones on the ground could see it, but the pilots in the planes would report seeing nothing. My grandparents have no reply, and I've known about this story since I was a kid. This is the first time telling it to anyone outside of our circle. It's a pleasure and a privilege to first present it to your podcast. My grandpa wishes he could see it again and asked if anyone with a similar story around the same area to please come forward.
Wow.
And he says, thanks and much love.
Wow. What a story. Do we have an idea of the year on this?
1980.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff's
1980.
fourth birthday. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That was my fourth. That was my fourth birthday.
Wow, man. That's quite a story, man.
yeah.
The visual I get from that thing moving through the mountain area reminds me of the story that
Lonnie?
yes, that Lonnie, sorry, been a long day, that Lonnie had when he was talking about how they would go over the trees, and it was like they would be going nice and smooth, and then when they'd come over like a taller obstacle, it would just kind of like hug it, like it was going along like a road or something, and where it would just sort of go right over it. That's what it reminded me of. And that is, wow, what a story. That's wild. I'd like to hear from that car, the other car, the truck that was there,
right?
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was a pretty long encounter,
right?
And it followed them for a while. And that's what would be the freakiest thing to me, because obviously, Grandpa got out because he was trying to like flag it down.
Yeah, right.
Everybody else was, peeing their pants, but Grandpa,
yeah, man,
to bring it in.
Right. It's funny that as part of the story, they still say Grandma said. Told Grandpa to get his ass back in the car and haul ass.
Yeah. Yep. That's a very, I could see my grandmother doing that. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's wild, man. Well, it makes you wonder, too, because they said they had seen those sightings. There were rumors of those sightings that were happening, too. Mm-hmm. Maybe which spurred him to say, fuck it, I'm going to see if I can't get these guys' attention. Because we heard so much about these types of stories. So, but it's interesting because it sounds like the light that was coming off of the thing was like very, 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 very bright enough to make you think that the woods were on fire. Seems like that would be a very, bright light. Wild.
Yeah. And there's a history there of, as Rudy, as he mentioned, is the Marfa lights. So there's a history there of these lights being seen in the mountains in that area, and saying that it's everything from UFOs to ghost to I'm sure somebody says it's swamp gas, even though there's not a swamp there, but
right, something.
Trying to find some kind of explanation or dismiss it. But so that I mean. That's an area that is known for strange occurrences of this nature. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that you mention it, it does seem like I have heard of the Marfa lights before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it while I was reading it, but I do think I've heard of the Marfa lights.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Great story.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rudy, for writing in, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we want to hear the Grandma and the Witch.
Yeah.
We want to hear that story, too.
Yeah, definitely. The more the merrier.
Yep. Right.
I wonder if that story is about like a broomstick witch or just a bitch.
Right.
I'm honest. It's a bruja. It's probably actual witch.
Yeah.
Because there's, still that's practiced. There's a lot of like Santeria and Palumbo or whatever the other one is. There's these kind of witchcraft. I mean, that's one term for it, but there's religions
Right.
that come from the Caribbean and by way of in Africa, in their origins, but blending a lot of, also Catholicism in with it.
Yep.
And those are big practice all over the Caribbean and the Central Americas,
Right.
and probably maybe even down into Southern America. And of course, not exclusively. I'm sure there are places here where there are populations that have a lot of from people from the Caribbean and such. But
Yeah. I was going to ask, with Ori's story, the shrines that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that stems from?
It's from the Day of the Dead.
But where does that come from?
It is it's from Mexico, I believe.
Right.
And that's what I know of it. And I'm certainly not a scholar, but I know that it is something that they celebrate in Mexico, and it's a day of kind of like honoring the dead,
Right.
and your family that have passed on, and it's just Dia de los Muertos. That's my horrible pronunciation of it, but you see the sugar skulls. You see a lot of those in the art where you have the skull, and
Right.
that comes from that practice.
Sure.
So, but it's I know that they have like parties and they have parades
Right.
and they have like floats and people dressed up as skeletons and spooky stuff. So it's in a way it's similar to like what we do for Halloween, but
Right.
closer to probably what they would more originally have done.
Yeah. It's pretty weird.
Halloween.
Isn't it interesting, though, like how when I think of South America or Mexico, I think of these other countries and even our country. It's like we have our religious beliefs, right? And our religious sort of way of going about things. But then we make exceptions for these other things and they sort of coexist. You know what I'm saying? Because Mexico is largely a Catholic, country. I mean, as well as most of the world, but it's just interesting that those two things exist together,
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Well, I mean, really, the history of Christianity is a lot of adapting to
Right.
local customs
Yep.
to bring in, as it grew from, a small Jewish sect to the worldwide thing that it is now. It would go in and it would settle in places, and it would set up shop in former, temples of other, religions and such. And take in holidays and traditions for holidays and make those to go with
Right.
their holidays.
Right.
So stuff like the Christmas tree and the Yule log,
Right.
and even April Fools, which is not necessarily a Christian holiday, but that was I believe it was the Celts or some kind of a pagan English
Yeah.
group that had celebrated April 1st as the new year.
Right.
And so the Christian in the area would laugh at them and say they were April Fools because the new year was on January 1st, according to
Right.
their calendar.
Right.
So that's where that comes from. I don't know where the pranking bit comes from, but that's a probably they started pranking those people because they believed that. But there's the whole celebrating the past, the dead, the past family members. In other cultures, it's a bigger, more normalized part of what they do. You know, like especially like in like Asian culture, you know, where and like in the Chinese and the Japanese, they have these kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, worship or honor for their ancestors,
right?
And they honor their memories and and all of that stuff. Whereas, I mean, in Western culture, at least in ours, especially in the United States, we just kind of, you know, we bury people, you know, and then we just kind of like leave it at that.
Right.
You know, we'll go and put some flowers on the grave once or twice a year, maybe.
Right.
And, you know, then we'll just move on and leave it, you know, and that's, you know,
so. Dress up in sexy costumes and hand out candy to children.
Yeah.
We turned it into a sex machine holiday party.
Thank God for that.
That's one thing I can get behind with that idea. Yeah.
Man. Have you guys seen Coco, the Disney movie Coco?
Not yet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a great. It's a great movie.
You know, that's all about the Day of the Dead.
That's right.
It's a beautiful movie, and it really is a shame that we don't celebrate our dead ancestors. Like, I mean, you know, if they are looking down on us from heaven, and they could see you do that, I think, you know, it would really, I mean, they would totally appreciate it. And you know, I guess that's why they do it.
Yeah. And that's maybe something that, for whatever reason, we don't like to think about here too much, you know. I get it, but it's just interesting how that we make exceptions for certain things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's humans are, and our story is so complex and interesting in that way. And I think it's important to keep those ideas around, you know, because it gives you, especially something like that where you're celebrating someone's life, it gives you perspective, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That is true.
It's
really true.
For so much of our childhood, I think it was looked down upon to do those types of things because it was looked at as being, you know, as evil or something that we didn't understand, you know?
Yeah. Or against the church or against God and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think, you know, that possibly is part of why we have kind of moved away from the celebration of our ancestors and stuff like that, because it could have been interpreted as you know, some kind of like deism kind of a thing where you know, but you know, I mean, they were people that, you know, you wouldn't be here without them. So they, you know, celebrate them if you like, if you wish, if that's what, you know, you feel is right to do, you know, if it's part of your broader culture and you embrace that, then yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's really cool, you know, but you know, and like I said, a lot of what is our part of our Western culture is just stuff that has been, especially American culture, stuff that has been absorbed over time.
Right.
And, you know, we kind of like things come and go, you know, like there was a time whenever people would go and have picnics in cemeteries.
Right.
And that wasn't terribly long ago.
Yeah.
You know, that was like 1800s, you know, but then, you know, people just now all of a sudden cemeteries became like places you don't want to go, you know, and if you do go and enjoy hanging out at a cemetery, you're creepy. Or
sacrilegious. Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. It's interesting.
Hey, everybody, this is Dave Schrader from the Holzer Files on Travel Channel. You're listening to What's Your Weird Story?
Hey man, did I ever tell you about this recent thing that happened to me? I was driving around in the country and it was just after dusk. So there's a little bit of light still coming on out of the sky, but it was mostly dark. I saw this black school bus.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Okay, so I saw this black school bus. All the windows were tinted and it started following me for about 15 minutes.
Whoa. No.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was at work. I was making deliveries and I just kept making my deliveries and like it would even stop and wait for me.
Oh.
And yeah, so but it was never close enough to where I could see it or anything, but it was following me, man.
Wow. Dang.
That's just an example of another really weird story that happened to me and that could have happened to you. You don't have to have a UFO encounter. You don't have to have seen the ghost of your grandmother. You don't have to know what Bigfoot smells like to have had a weird story. Basically, what we're saying is weird covers a lot of ground here on the What's Your Weird Story podcast. And we love hearing all of your stories, whether they're spooky, they're funny, they're bizarre, or they're just short, sweet, and unexplained. Kind of like our podcast. Awesome. Great stuff. Great stories. Thank you for sending those in, Ori and Rudy. And thank you, Jeff, as always, for being the voice of the listeners and reading those stories so well, so dramatically, so impactfully. Makes you feel like you were there, I guess, kind of. Yeah? Is that how you feel like you were there, Bear?
I did. Yeah. He
Right
does a great job every time.
Mm-hmm,
Whispering in my ear.
Yes. It just gives me goosepimples. So anyway, yeah. Hey, if you enjoyed that story from Rudy, stick around for it because in a few weeks we actually are going to be talking to Rudy on the show, and he's going to be sharing that story in a little bit more of a detail, and also some more of his stories from his family, and that's going to be really cool. So that'll be coming up in 2021.
Yeah.
Yay.
Wow.
We're almost there.
I can't believe it. it. I mean, this year, as shitty as it's been, I can't wait for it to be over. But it did kind of, I guess, move at a rapid pace, I guess, which is good.
Well, you say that now, but if you go back and you remember that March was like 3 years long.
That's true.
True. And then it was slow. Spring was just moved at a glacier's pace, but it really finally picked up back in the summer, and then we really were able to tear through the fall, and now moving into winter pretty quickly, it seems. But I think we're just distracted by so much going on.
Yeah.
So and there's so much going on. And speaking of that, all that so much going on, we'll be having a end of the year weird news roundup. That'll be the last episode of the year, and we're going to be talking. There's so much weird news this year.
Yeah, man. Like just all over the map. Weird.
Yeah, and not even including the global pandemic.
Right. Yeah, that's not even. Yeah, we're not even talking about that.
Yeah, or anything really overly political, anything like. We're just talking about weird stories that have popped up.
Yeah.
So you've got that to look forward to as well. But speaking of stories, let's move into the next section of the show.
Cool.
Where we speak to Mr. Brandon Robbins. All right. And now we have a return guest who has not, he hasn't been with us in a while, but it's always a pleasure to have him back. And he is here to talk about his very first published novel. We talked about this way back when he was on our Halloween show that you were talking about that from last year?
Not last year. I think the year before. I think the first y'all were doing the podcast.
Wow. It's been no, I know that it's been a while, but hey, Brandon,
I did do the Halloween show last year.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah, you had me back for that.
All right. So anyway, that voice belongs to our friend Brandon Robbins, and Brandon has a book, his very first novel, coming out December 20th. So if you are, listen up and support our friends. Check this out. He's going to tell us a little bit about it, and what you can do to get your your grubby little hands. I'm sorry, you shouldn't. You maybe don't have grubby hands. Nobody should have grubby hands now in time of Corona. But your well manicured and well groomed and clean hands, cleaned with soap and water and all sorts of alcohol based hand rubbing stuff. So yeah, this is where you can go. He'll tell you where to go. He'll tell you where to go to find his book. So thank you for joining us, Brandon. What's your publication story? What's your, I don't know. Tell us what you got.
Yeah. Thank you. The title of the book is Mr. Haunt.
Mr. Haunt.
Mr. Haunt, as in haunted house.
Because if it was Mr. Hot, then I know that it would have been about me.
Mr. Hot. And I'm like, no, it's not a porno.
Well, why did you ask me for all those stories?
That's the second novel.
Okay. Novel?
That's the follow-up. Mr. Haunt is about a young man. It follows his life both as he was a child and a teenager, and later on in his adult years after he's found success as a writer. And basically, starting as a young boy, he starts seeing this demonic entity who calls himself Mr. Haunt. And Mr. Haunt terrorizes him. He, says horrible things to him about, what he's going to do to his family, about, causing him bodily harm, frightful things to him, shows up in the middle of the night, creeping out of his closet like the boogeyman and everything. And, of course, everyone thinks that it's just in his head, that, he's anxious, he's depressed, and he's seeing this thing and it's tormenting him. He goes, through therapy. Don't want to give too much away because, of course, I want people to read it, but he goes through some serious trauma in his life. And then he goes several years without seeing Mr. Haunt, but then something happens in his adult life and Mr. Haunt comes back. And that part of the story is him struggling with the reappearance of this thing that he's been seeing and, dealing with it and trying to make it go away again.
Nice.
So it's very much so a horror story, even though it touches on themes like anxiety and depression and, how it can really mess with your head. Mr. Haunt does exist. He's not a figment of the, and you can tell by reading the book, so I don't think I'm giving too much away.
Yeah.
It's not a figment of the character's imagination. He is real. And, that's how I wanted to frame it, even though it can be seen as a study of how having a mental illness can really mess with you.
Nice. Now, what was your inspiration to go down that lane with this story?
Even though the book isn't autobiographical, this guy has a much more messed up life than I have ever had. With abusive parents, and he goes through drug addiction and, all that kind of stuff. Still, a lot of my own experiences with having anxiety and depression and knowing that it can create monsters in your head that you either see or don't see. And also, too, it's just an idea that I had floating around in my head for years about, this man being tormented by a thing that no one else can see.
Right.
And I know that's a common trope in horror literature. I'm not the first to do it. I won't be the last. But it's something that I wanted to experiment with and play around with.
Sure. That's great, man. I think when it comes to art, it's hard for the person that is creating it to not have something in that reflects them, So I'm always curious to find out kind of what that process is like. Now, when you got started writing this, how long of a process was that? How long did it take you to put it together?
I actually started, well, I'd made several false starts throughout the years on it, but for National Novel Writing Month, which for those of you who don't know is this, it's an organization that promotes it called National Novel Writing Month. But the idea is that each year in the month of November, people sign up to participate in it. And for the month of November, they write a 50,000 word manuscript for a novel.
Wow.
So, of course, you know, you're at your laptop, computer, keyboard, notebook, whatever you're using, pounding out words tirelessly for the entire month of November. But the idea is to get people to commit to doing something creative and to get their butt in a seat and get them actually working on it instead of dreaming about it.
Yeah.
I finally decided to buckle down, put the pressure on myself, and write Mr. Hunt for National Novel Writing Month one year. So 30 days and a irresponsible amount of energy drinks later. I have my
Wow.
I know what you consider responsible for energy drinks. I don't know how well, you know, how that gauges with most other people, but I suppose if you're if you own a video game chair, then that's probably along that lines. If you have a dual screen setup, then you probably have you consume more than what would be a reasonable amount of not guano, but was it guaro, whatever that is.
Yeah,
the energy drink stuff. So
guarana, vitamin B12, caffeine, and taurine.
Yeah, there you go.
Unholy quadrilogy.
That's
write a horror story about that.
That's an impressive amount of writing in my mind. I can't even imagine trying to do that. So that's pretty impressive, man. Pretty impressive.
Is a lot of that like stream of consciousness kind of writing type stuff? You just like pounding away?
I guess stream of consciousness would be a good descriptor for it, because definitely almost every day I sat down not really knowing what I was going to write that day. And I just would pick something, pick an event in this guy's life. He's called Clyde is his name. Pick an event in Clyde's life or something that happened to me and remix it, make it worse, so it would be more impactful. An experience that I know other people have gone through and just touch off of that.
Sure.
And I would introduce that and then I would follow through with the repercussions of it. And basically that's how each chapter is structured. Something happens, Clyde reacts to it.
Right.
His friends and family react to him reacting to it. And I would just keep building on that. But, this planning took maybe 5 or 10 minutes. What I would do to get into the mood writing each day is I would spend a good 20 or 30 minutes. And, this sounds ridiculous, but it actually kind of works once you read the book, I think. Looking at music videos from the 90s.
Okay.
Like Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails and all the crap that we weren't supposed to look at because our parents thought it would turn us into Satan worshipers.
Right.
And, just those artists and the tone and the look of their, music videos and the artistry in that kind of got me into that headspace of writing something horrific.
I'm fascinated by writers because it's like, where does that inspiration come from? Where, do they draw from their own lives? Are they drawing from other media, outlets, artistic outlets? So it's cool that you talked about that. And I think that people can relate. I can certainly relate because when I was a kid, I was drawn to super heavy, dark music, because it was such the antithesis of our lives. Which was the draw. And so, I could see the parallels there. So that's really cool, man. Do you have other publications, man, or anything else out there that people can read?
Yes, I have a few short stories that are available on various websites.
Okay.
A couple of poems that were published in a anthology that unfortunately is no longer available for purchase. I think the publisher ran into some issues with Amazon or whatever. But
yeah, porn will do that sometimes. If you're writing porn stuff. So, you said poems.
Poems.
Okay, sorry. I've known Brandon a long time, so it really could go either way. So, Speaking of weirdness and inspiration, what are some of your kind of literary inspirations, or creative inspirations? The forefathers, some that help you, that inspire you. Because that's what inspiration.
You know that Neil Gaiman has been my favorite writer for a very long time. I discovered him in college. I was way too young to read Sandman when it first came out in the 90s, but I started reading the trades, the graphic novels, when I was in college, and just, went through those at an alarming speed, completely devoured them, and have read, most of his prose stuff as well. I haven't read a whole lot of Stephen King. Even though I was an avid reader when I was a kid, remember I came from a fairly conservative household, so a lot of his stuff was just, a lot of the stuff I got into later in life, a lot of the horror and a lot of the fantasy and dark fantasy was just kind of out of my grasp. Excuse me. But what I have read of Stephen King, I do like a lot of his ideas. I can definitely see how the character of Mr. Haunt is similar to Pennywise.
Okay.
And how he operates and how he kind of, moves in and out of, reality, and, definitely the taunting and the vileness of the taunts and everything. It's really hard for me to nail down exactly who I would say inspires me. Because, when you create art, whether it's writing or painting or music or whatever, you don't always see your influences go through.
That's true.
Right.
I'm sure people would read a book by any author and they'd be able to nail down 10 different influences that the author may or may not have even ever read, or they may have read one short story by them or one book by them.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I can definitely, in having written it and having edited it and having, gone through and revised it again after my wife gave it a read through, who, she was my primary editor on the book. She's done professional editing before, which saved me a whole lot of money.
No kidding.
I can definitely say that those two were definite. Were definite inspirations. Music was a, I already said that I, would look at music videos to get into the mood for writing. Clyde is a big music person, even though he's a writer and his background is in writing. He still loves music, takes a date to a heavy metal show, has a friend that's in a band and everything.
Nice.
So the music that I've listened to, ever since I was a young adult up until now, and that I would listen to get into the headspace for the book, was a definite influence as well.
Cool. That's
awesome.
Great. That's great.
All right, so this comes out December 20 of this year, 2020, and that's is that physical printed books, or is it digital, like ebook, or how do our Weirdville friends get a hold of this?
It will be available in both Kindle and in paperback. Pre-orders for the Kindle are available now on Amazon, and I'll send you guys the link, because you can't just go on Amazon and search for it. The publisher has set up a very specific link you have to go through.
Okay.
So I will send that to y'all. But pre-orders for the Kindle are up now for only $1.99, so not a heavy investment.
Great.
And then the paperback will be available on December 20th. So if you want a physical copy, you do have to wait. But if you've got a Kindle and, you can go ahead and pre-order it, and it'll be available for you to download on release day.
Get them both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please.
That's one thing about reading, man. I like a physical book. You know, I still haven't made the transition over to, now I'll listen to Audible books also, but I like having a physical book in my hand, you know. It's just something about that. It's the, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
And aside from supporting me, from supporting the writer, doing so supports the publisher. You know, it's a small publisher out of Florida.
Sure.
They don't have a whole lot of money to work with. Every sale counts for them. It's not like you're buying from Penguin or Random House, where, you know, one book is, you know, couch change to them.
Sure.
You know, that $1.99 you spend on the Kindle ebook, you know, will help them pay the bills.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's like the small indie label, you know?
Yeah. Very, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. Support those small businesses, especially, you know, this year, because you've had so many of the little guys have, you know, folded.
Yeah.
And, you know, because they just aren't able to, you know, I mean, they're not able to produce, they're not able to get stuff out because of restrictions and just everything, you know, being crazy. So, you know, to be out there and support our friend and fellow weird villain, Brandon, and, you know, it's good for the holidays, you know, give some creepy vibes in creepy stories for your, you know, to everybody. Cause look, it's something we all like. Obviously you're listening to this podcast. You probably enjoyed the weird, creepy kind of stuff, you know, so this will be right up your lane. And
something that we discovered too is that you know, Christmas time is a big horror or scary storytelling time. Has been in the past. Like that was part of the tradition. So makes this all sort of works together.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was actually reading an article on Aisle 9 a few weeks back, and they did a breakdown of holiday-themed horror films, and there have been more Christmas horror films than Halloween horror films.
Wow!
Right? Wow! Wow!
One of the first recognized in the genre of slasher films was a Christmas-themed horror film. I don't know if it was Silent Night, Deadly Night, or something like that.
That's right, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Black Christmas.
Black Christmas, yeah, it was one of those. Both of those are early in the genre.
I remember watching both of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff, man. That's awesome, man.
It works.
It does
in a way, yeah.
Yeah, so because it's the antithesis of what that time is. You know, you're not expecting horror at the time of, like, you know, Santa Claus and Jesus. You know,
well, you might be expecting horror depending on how your family dynamic. But,
that's true. That's true.
But yeah,
well, in a lot of you know, commentary about that, because it's kind of been a thing in the past couple of years amongst a lot of bloggers and pop cultural commentators to kind of you know, analyze, you know, this fact that, you know, Christmas is a time for scary stories and ghost stories and everything. When you think about it, Halloween is, you know, a great time of year, but, you know, it's early fall,
right?
You know, it's still light outside. Temperatures are still, you know, in the, you know, for most of the country are still kind of comfortable.
Yeah.
But when you get to Christmas, it's dark. The days are short. It's cold outside. The trees are dead. There's no leaves on them. It's a very spooky time of year.
Yes.
So, you know, it's only natural that, you know, our mind kind of drifts to, you know, the scary and the supernatural during that time of year.
Right. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you, man, for coming on and, you know, promoting the book, and we wish you nothing but the best. And again, you know, people need to go out there and support this and buy them both, man. Get the Kindle version, get the paperback version. If any other versions come out, get those too.
Hey, that's a nice t-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new Spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS hyphen YER-WEIRD-STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies because, you know, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's 2 different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story, currently there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of our shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors.
Well, thanks again, guys, for checking in with us. And again, if you're interested, we'd love to have you guys come on the podcast, share your stories with us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if you're looking to promote something and you got a story that you want to tell, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can write it in like our guest from the first portion of the show. We love having those written in stories. You know, and of course, our good friend and special correspondent, resident Bigfoot and voice of the listener, Jeff Hubbard, loves to read those stories. You could even call it in if you want to, you know, if you want to tell it in your own voice, but don't necessarily want to talk to us. We're fun guys, but, you know, hey, some people, you know, they don't want to talk to us. So you could call the hotline, which is 513-909-9821. That's 513-909-9821.
I love that voice, man.
Call the hotline and leave a message up to 3 minutes per time. Leave as many messages as you like. We would love to hear your stories.
Yeah, we'll string them. We'll string them together.
Yeah, we'll put it together, and you know, that'll be cool too. You know, I mean, but you know, your stories are what drives this, and what drive us to continue doing this and stuff. And you know, we had talked, you know, from the beginning of 2020, we've been talking about doing some expanding and doing stuff behind the scenes and making changes and doing stuff. And it's taken us a while, but we are finally kind of getting that into motion. I mean, we've taken baby steps a few times, but now we've got a map, you know, and we're going on that. So expect more things from us next year. And that'll be fun. You know, we hope we'll finally be able to get our, music podcast Spin Jamorama up and going, you know, and of course we'll continue with What's Your Weird Story and all of that. So, you know, give us your stories, give us your ears to listen to, join us, be part of the community. And, you know, it's fun. We love you guys. We can't thank you enough for sharing your experiences and for listening to us every week. And for telling other people and subscribing and all of that stuff, being so supportive. You guys are amazing. Yeah. Really. And, you know, hardcore fans. And we've grown internationally. We've got a lot of international listeners. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. What's your weird email at gmail.com. And, you know, or contact us through social media, Instagram, Twitter, on the Facebook page. Be in touch, and we will see you next week for our Christmas special.
Wow, yeah, that's great. This is fun. This is a lot of fun. You guys are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's going to be something different, but it will be, as usual, Barry and myself. And again, we'll have our special correspondent, resident Bigfoot expert, and voice of the listener, Mr. Jeff Hubbard, joining us, and we've got a special present for you guys.
Yeah, good stories. Good stories.
Yes. So, and it's not necessarily, you know, Christmas theme per se, but you know, that's what we here in the that's what we celebrate, the Christmas holiday, as it were, probably more the pop cultural side of it here in North America. But we've got a present for you, and it's coming next week for your ear holes. So in the meantime, make sure you've done all you can to get off that naughty list. And you can, if there's any good stories on that go through what you got you on that naughty list, you can call in and leave us information about that. Maybe we'll set up a super secret,
that's
wink,
right,
wink,
anonymous
podcast show. Actually, I kind of like that idea.
Yeah,
that could be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we'll have a confessions podcast show or something added to our repertoire.
That's a great idea. That would
be really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, think about that. But in the meantime, be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not as fun.